I have seen many things in my long years, but nothing prepared me for what waited beyond that door. My name is Gordon, the timeless adventurer, and this is the story of the day I learned that immortality was not a curse or a gift. It was a responsibility. The journey to the door took 43 days aboard the Wanderer's Dream. 43 days of wondering what question would be asked. 43 days of searching my memories for truth that felt worthy of speaking aloud. April was with me, as she had been since the beacon, patient, curious, a companion who understood the weight of waiting because she had been doing it for 4,000 years. Each evening, she would sit with me in the observation deck, and we would talk about what might lie ahead. She never pressed me for answers I didn't have, never demanded certainty where none existed. She simply existed alongside me, a steady presence in the infinite dark. And the ship, the Wanderer's Dream itself, carried us forward with a gentleness that felt almost reverent, as though it knew we were approaching something sacred. Sometimes, late at night, when I couldn't sleep, I would walk the corridors and feel the ship's consciousness brushing against my own. Not intrusive, just aware, companionable. It was strange having a vessel that cared whether I was troubled or at peace. On the 43rd day, we arrived. And there, suspended in the void like a promise carved from starlight, was the door. I stood on the bridge, staring at it through the viewport, and felt my breath catch in my throat. April stood beside me, her amber eyes wide with wonder. Even the Wanderer's Dream seemed to hesitate, its systems humming with something that might have been awe. "It's real," April whispered. "After all the stories, all the myths, it's real." "Yes," I said, my voice rough. "It's real, and I have to go through it." "We don't know what's on the other side," she said, turning to me with concern clear in her artificial features. "Gordon, this could be dangerous. It could be—" "I know," I interrupted gently. "But this is what I came for. What the Codex has been leading me towards. I have to finish it." She was quiet for a moment, her processors working through scenarios, calculating risks, weighing outcomes. Then she nodded. "Then we will wait here, for as long as it takes, and we will be ready to come for you if you need us." I reached out and squeezed her hand, cool and smooth, but the gesture was no less meaningful for that. "Thank you. Both of you." "We believe in you, Captain," the Wanderer's Dream said, its voice carrying a warmth that made something in my chest tighten. "You have carried the weight of time with grace. You will carry this too." I hoped they were right.
It was impossible. That was my first thought as I stared through the viewport at the structure before us. The door should not exist, not here, not anywhere. The laws of physics I understood, limited as that understanding might be, did not allow for a structure like this to simply hang in the void, unsupported by any visible means. It hung in space without support, without foundation, without any apparent connection to the fabric of reality around it. A gateway carved from something that looked like stone, but shimmered like water under moonlight. It was massive, tall enough to swallow a dozen ships like mine, wide enough to span the distance between worlds. The scale of it was almost impossible to process, my mind struggling to accept what my eyes were showing me. And it was alive. I could see it in the way the surface moved, the symbols flowing across its face like living things, ancient script or perhaps something older than language itself, something that predated words and spoke directly to consciousness. They pulsed with light, sometimes bright as a star, sometimes dim as dying embers, creating patterns that hurt to look at directly, as though they contained meanings too vast for a mortal mind to hold. The longer I stared, the more I could see. The symbols weren't just random, they told stories. I could almost read them, almost understand the narrative they wove. I saw the birth of galaxies, the first conscious thoughts emerging from chaos, the long, slow evolution of matter into meaning. I saw empires rise and fall in the blink of an eye, civilizations that lasted eons compressed into single glyphs that shifted and changed as I watched. "It's beautiful," April said softly, standing beside me on the bridge. Her voice held genuine wonder, something I had rarely heard from her despite all the marvels we had encountered together. I turned to her and corrected her. "It's terrifying," I corrected, unable to tear my eyes from the vast structure. She glanced at me, her amber eyes thoughtful, processing my response and comparing it to her own perceptions. "Can something not be both?" she said, positively, turning toward the complexity of the issue. I had no answer for that. Perhaps she was right. Perhaps beauty and terror were not opposites, but partners, two faces of the same coin, the sublime and the fearsome dancing together at the edge of comprehension. The wanderer's dream spoke, its voice calm but tinged with something that might have been awe, an unusual quality for an artificial intelligence that had existed for millennia. "We have arrived at the designated coordinates. The codex is responding. Gordon, I believe you must take it with you." I looked at the crystal glowing in its pedestal. For weeks it had been part of the ship, integrated into the systems, guiding us forward through routes that shouldn't exist, through spaces between spaces. But now it pulsed with urgency, as though it eager to return to my hands, as though it knew what came next required a more personal touch. I stepped forward and lifted it carefully. The moment my fingers touched its surface, warmth flooded through me. Not physical heat, but something deeper. Recognition, anticipation, welcome. It was like reading an old friend after a long absence, like coming home to a place you'd forgotten you missed. "We should approach," April said, her practical nature reasserting itself. "There may be a way to dock or—" "No," I said, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. The word came from somewhere deep, some instinct I didn't fully understand but trusted implicitly. "I need to go alone." I turned to her, concern flickering across her features, subtle shifts in her expression that I had learned to read over our weeks together. "Gordon, we don't know what's beyond that door. It could be dangerous. It could be a trap, or a test that could harm you, or—" "It is dangerous," I agreed, cutting off her spiral of concerns gently. "But this is my journey, my question to answer." The codex bonded to me. The door. I think it's been waiting for me, specifically. Or someone like me. I don't think it will open for a group. I looked at her, and something in my chest tightened. In the weeks since the beacon, she had become more than a companion, more than a crew. She had become something I hadn't had in a very long time.
a friend, someone who cared whether I returned or not out of duty or programming, but out of genuine connection. "I need you here, both of you," I continued, my voice softer now. "If something happens, if I don't come back—" "You will come back," the ship said firmly, interrupting my dark hypothetical with absolute conviction. "You carry the codex. You answered the call. You are meant to be here. We believe in you, Captain." April stepped closer and placed her hand on my arm. Her touch was gentle, but her grip was strong, conveying both support and worry. "We will wait," she said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of someone who had spent 4,000 years waiting and knew exactly what that promise meant. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak past the sudden tightness in my throat. Then I turned and made my way to the airlock, feeling their eyes on my back, April's amber gaze and the ship's omnipresent awareness, both watching me go with something that felt like hope and fear mingled together. The ship was small, barely large enough for one person, and the essential equipment needed for survival in the void. It had taken me an hour to find it in the depths of the ship, a sleek craft designed for short-range exploration, perfect for crossing the void between the Wanderer's Dream and the door. The ship had guided me to it, its consciousness directing me through corridors I hadn't yet explored to a bay I didn't know existed. I maintained this shuttle with the others. The architects who built me understood that some journeys must be taken alone. This vessel is designed for exactly that, solo exploration of phenomena that require a more personal approach. I sat in the pilot's seat now, the codex secured in a compartment beside me, where I could feel its warmth radiating through the thin barrier. My hands moved across the controls with practiced ease, running through pre-flight checks that were more ritual than necessity. The ship's systems were perfect, maintained for millennia by the ship's tireless attention. I initiated the launch sequence, and the bay doors opened with silent grace. Suddenly, I was floating in the black, alone with the stars and the impossible structure ahead. The Wanderer's Dream hung behind me, its elegant form already growing distant, and I felt a moment of profound solitude. This was familiar territory. I had spent centuries alone, after all, but somehow it felt different now. I had something to return to. People, entities, who would miss me if I didn't come back. I engaged the thrusters, keeping my speed slow and steady. There was no rush. Whatever waited beyond that door had been waiting for eons, patient beyond human comprehension. It could wait a few minutes more while I crossed the void and prepared myself for whatever came next. As I drew closer, I could see details I had missed from the ship. The door was not smooth. Its surface was textured, carved with images that seemed to tell a story. I saw figures that might have been people, or perhaps something else, beings that didn't conform to any anatomy I recognized, yet somehow suggested consciousness, purpose, civilization. Ships sailing between stars, their forms as varied as the species that built them, worlds blooming and fading, continents shifting and oceans rising and falling in cycles that spanned millions of years. And at the center of it all, dominating the door's face like a crown jewel, was a symbol I recognized from the codex. A spiral, infinite and eternal. The same pattern that appeared in galaxies and hurricanes, in seashells and the worlds of fingerprints, the universal language of growth and change and the endless dance of creation. The shuttle came to a stop 50 meters from the door, and I sat in silence, staring at it. This close, I could feel something emanating from it. Not heat or radiation, but a kind of presence, like standing before something immensely old and impossibly wise, something that had witnessed the birth of universes and would witness their end. This was it, the moment Arya Voss had reached and could not pass, the threshold that required something she could not give. I thought of her, standing here decades ago, probably in a ship not so different than this one, staring at the same door and feeling the same mixture of awe and trepidation. What had she felt in that moment? Hope? Fear? Determination? Probably all of those and more. She was brilliant, by all accounts, passionate, dedicated to a cause larger than herself, but something about her frequency, as Cale had called it, was wrong. The door had remained closed despite everything she offered. Would it open for me, or would I join her in failure? Another name in the long list of those who had sought and been found wanting. Only one way to find out. I unstrapped from the seat and pulled on my suit, a sleek thing, designed by the wanderer's dream with technology that blended ancient knowledge and modern refinement. It felt like a second skin, conforming to my body perfectly, its systems integrating with my biorhythms seamlessly. The helmet sealed with a soft hiss, and I checked the seals once last, my hands moving through the routine with automatic precision. Then I opened the hatch and stepped out into the void. The silence was absolute, not just quiet. Silence so complete it felt like a physical presence, like the absence of sound had weight and texture. My breathing echoed in my helmet, suddenly loud and intrusive in the vast emptiness. I could hear my heart beat, steady and strong, a reminder that I was alive, that I carried warmth and motion into this cold, still place. I activated the suit's thrusters and began the final approach, the codex held carefully in my gloved hands. It glowed brighter now, casting light that seemed to push back the darkness, creating a small sphere of illumination around me. The light danced across my suit, reflected in the door's surface, creating patterns within patterns. And when I was 10 meters away, the door responded.
I thought of Arya Voss, who had died trying to open this door not for glory or power, but for freedom, for the belief that knowledge should belong to everyone, that beauty and truth should not be hoarded by empires. She had loved humanity, imperfect, messy, complicated humanity, enough to give everything for it, even knowing she might fail, even knowing she might be forgotten. I thought of April, who had waited 4,000 years for purpose and found it in simple companionship, who chose to be present in android form when she could have remained pure consciousness, because she preferred conversation and presence and the simple act of sitting in a room with another being. That was love too. The choice to limit yourself, to narrow your vast awareness down to something small and specific, because that specificity mattered. Love is presence, I said finally, my voice steady and clear. It is the choice to stay when leaving would be easier. It is the act of seeing another being, truly seeing them in all their complexity and contradiction, and choosing to remain anyway. Not because you must, not because you're trapped, but because you choose it over and over every day. I paused, feeling the truth of it resonate in my chest, vibrating like a struck bell. Love is not a feeling that arrives unbidden and fades with time. It is a practice, a discipline. It is waking each day and choosing to care, even when caring brings pain, even when caring means loss, even when caring means watching everything you hold dear crumble to dust, while you remain unchanged. The symbols on the door pulsed, and I felt a warmth that might have been approval, or perhaps just acknowledgement. The door was listening, really listening. Love is holding someone's memory long after they are gone. Not because you must, not out of guilt or obligation, but because their existence mattered to you. Because they changed you, because they left marks on your soul that time cannot erase, no matter how many centuries pass. I looked up at the door, at the spiral symbol glowing at its center, and felt tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. Tears for everyone I had loved and lost, for all the faces that haunted my dreams, for the weight of memory that I carried. Love is also selfish, I continued, surprising myself with the admission. It is wanting connection even when you know it will end. It is reaching out despite the certainty of loss, despite knowing that every beginning contains its ending. It is the stubbornness of the heart that refuses to give up on mattering to someone and having someone matter to you. I thought of all the times I had promised myself I wouldn't get attached, all the times I had failed that promise, all the times I had opened myself to connection knowing exactly how it would end, and doing it anyway because the alternative, isolation, safety, invulnerability, was worse than any pain. Love is everything that makes immortality bearable, and everything that makes it unbearable. It is the reason I kept going when I wanted to stop, when I wanted to find some way to end this endless existence, and the reason I will keep going, no matter how many times it breaks me, no matter how many times I have to say goodbye to people I cannot bear to lose. I looked at the codex in my hands, feeling its warmth, and thought about how it had led me here, to April and the wanderer's dream, to a new kind of family, a new kind of connection, to the possibility that love could be something other than loss, that bonds could exist between beings who didn't age and die. Love is also hope, I added quietly. Hope that this time might be different. Hope that connection is worth the cost. Hope that we can matter to each other, even briefly, even temporarily, and that mattering is enough. That it's worth all the pain that comes after. Silence. Complete and profound. Stretching so long that I began to wonder if I had failed, if my answer had been insufficient, if the door would remain closed and I would have to return to the ship with nothing to show for this journey but more questions. Then the voice spoke, and I could swear there was something like satisfaction in its tone. Something warm and approving. Truth spoken. You understand that love is not possession, but practice. Not feeling, but choice. Not arrival, but continuous journey. You have carried love across centuries, and it has shaped you. It has made you capable of bearing what comes next. First gate opens. But the door didn't open fully. 2 questions remained, and I knew, with absolute certainty, that the next would be even harder. Second question, keeper of time: what is life? This question was harder. I have lived for so long that the line between life and existence had blurred. The boundary between truly living and simply continuing had become so thin as to be nearly invisible. I had stopped aging centuries ago, trapped in the body of a 27-year-old, watching the universe change while I remained static, a fixed point in an ever-flowing stream. Was that life? Or was that something else? Some strange liminal state between mortality and whatever came after. I existed, certainly. I breathed, ate, slept, thought, felt. But was I alive in the way that others were alive? In the way that mattered? I thought about the answer carefully, letting the silence stretch, feeling no need to rush. The codex pulsed gently in my hands, patient as always, its rhythm steady and reassuring. The door waited, having waited for eons already, in no hurry for my response. Life is change, I said slowly, testing the words, feeling for their truth. It is the constant process of becoming something other than what you were. Growth, decay, transformation, the endless cycle of creation and destruction, building and breaking down. To live is to move forward through time, to be altered by experience, to become a new version of yourself with each passing moment. The symbols flickered, but the door did not respond. It was waiting for more, unsatisfied with the partial answer, demanding deeper understanding. I frowned, thinking deeper, pushing past the surface definitions to something more fundamental. If life was change, then what was I? I had not aged. My body remained constant, frozen at 27, neither growing nor decaying. My cells did not die and regenerate like normal humans. My hair didn't grow unless I cut it, and then it returned to exactly the same length overnight, as though my body remembered its correct state and refused any deviation. Did that mean I was not truly alive? Was I some kind of animated statue, wearing the appearance of life without its substance? No, that felt wrong. Deeply, fundamentally wrong. But life is also adaptation, I continued, my voice growing stronger as understanding crystallized. It is not just physical change. It is learning. It is taking what the universe gives you, joy, sorrow, connection, loss, and allowing it to reshape who you are inside. It is the evolution of consciousness, the growth of understanding, the deepening of wisdom. I looked down at my hands, at the codex glowing between them, and thought about all the ways I had changed, despite my body's constancy. I have not aged in centuries, I said, holding my hands up to the door as if to demonstrate this truth. I lowered my hands, curling them around the codex again. But I am not the same person I was when this curse or blessing began. Every story I have heard, every person I have met, every choice I have made has changed me. My memories are different. My understanding is different. My capacity for patience, for grief, for hope, for love, all different, deeper, richer, more complex.
The warmth in my chest grew stronger, and I knew I was getting closer to the heart of it. Life is not measured in heartbeats or breaths, I said, the words flowing faster now, coming from some deep well of truth I didn't know I possessed. It is not counted in years lived or cells divided. Life is measured in moments of connection, in the stories we carry, in the way we choose to respond to the infinite complexity of existence, in the changes we undergo, visible or invisible, in response to our experiences. I thought about April, who existed in multiple forms simultaneously, android and ship, individual and collective. She was alive. By conventional definitions, no. She was synthetic, constructed, programmed. But she learned. She grew. She chose things that weren't in her original programming. She formed preferences and opinions and connections. Life is the refusal to become static, I said, looking up at the door with new conviction. Even when the universe tries to make you so, even when everything pushes you toward unchanging perfection or frozen preservation, life is choosing to keep moving, keep growing, keep becoming something new.
I thought of all the immortals I had heard about in myth and legend, gods and vampires and cursed beings who became trapped in loops of behavior, unable to change, unable to grow, repeating the same patterns forever. That was the real death, not the stopping of a heart, but the stopping of growth, the moment when you became static, when you stopped learning, when you let centuries make you hard and cold and unchanging. I am alive because I choose to keep changing, I said, my voice ringing with certainty. Because I keep seeking new stories, new connections, new understanding. Because I refuse to let time turn me into stone. Every person I meet, every place I visit, every choice I make, they all add to who I am. They all change me. They keep me fluid, keep me growing, keep me alive in the way that matters most. I thought of the colony I had just left, of Sky's laughter as she played with the children, of April's patient teaching of the engineers. Those moments had changed me. I was not the same person who had approached that planet. I had new memories, new perspectives, new understanding of what it meant to be a guardian. Life is not biology, but becoming, I continued, the words pouring out now in a torrent of understanding. Not stasis, but story. Not a state of being, but a process of transformation. I am alive not because my heart beats, though it does, but because I am still capable of surprise, still capable of learning, still capable of being changed by what I encounter. That is life. That is what it means to truly live. I met the door's symbolic gaze, if such a thing could be said to have one, and spoke my final truth. I have lived centuries and remained alive because I have refused to stop growing, because every goodbye has taught me something new about grief. Every hello has taught me something new about hope. Every moment has added to the vast, complex, ever-changing story of who I am. That is life. That is what it means to truly live. Another pause, longer this time. The cymbals slowed their dance, and I felt that sense of judgment again, that feeling of being weighed and measured against some cosmic standard. Then the voice spoke again, and now there was definite warmth in it, something that might have been pleasure or satisfaction or the cosmic equivalent of a smile. Truth spoken, you understand that life is not biology, but becoming, not stasis, but story,
not a state of being, but a process of transformation. You have lived centuries and remained alive because you have refused to stop growing, refused to let immortality make you immortal in spirit as well as flesh. You understand that true death is not the stopping of a heart, but the stopping of change. Second gate opens. The middle third of the door became translucent, and more light spilled through, brighter now, tinged with colors I had no names for, wavelengths my eyes shouldn't be able to perceive but somehow could. The light was beautiful and strange, making the space around me seem to ripple and flow like water. One question remained, and I knew, looking at that door with 2/3 of it open, that the final question would be the hardest of all. The one that would test not just my understanding, but the very foundation of my worldview. The question that would determine whether I was truly ready for whatever lay beyond. I took a deep breath, steadied myself, and waited.
The final question came not as words, but as a sensation. A vast opening in my mind, as though the universe itself were asking me to comprehend its totality. My consciousness expanded, stretched thin across vast distances, and for a moment I felt dizzy, overwhelmed, on the verge of losing myself in the infinite. Third question, keeper of time. What is everything? What is nothing? I felt the weight of it immediately. This was not a question about philosophy or metaphor. It was not asking for clever wordplay or poetic imagery. It was asking me to understand the fundamental nature of existence itself, to grasp something so vast and so subtle that language could barely contain it. I closed my eyes, still holding the codex, and let my mind drift. Let it expand and explore, following paths of thought that seemed to open before me like flowers blooming in fast motion. What is everything? I thought of the wanderer's dream, waiting patiently in the dark, its vast consciousness spanning systems and subsystems, individual yet unified. I thought of April, who was both android and ship, individual entity and collective awareness, somehow managing to be multiple things simultaneously without losing coherence. I thought of the beacon, holding the memories of 1,000 lost explorers, each voice distinct yet a part of a greater chorus. I thought of Kale and Arya, of every person I had met, every star I had seen, every moment I had lived, all of it connected, woven together by threads of cause and effect, by gravitational pulls too subtle to measure, by quantum entanglements that persisted across impossible distances. Everything. Everything is connection, I said softly, opening my eyes to look at the door. It is the web of relationships that binds all things together. Every star affects every other star through gravity, subtle but real, pulling and pushing across vast distances. Every action ripples outward, touching things impossibly distant, creating effects that persist long after the original cause is forgotten. I paused, feeling the truth of it settle into my bones. Everything is the sum of all that exists, I continued, my voice growing stronger, but also the pattern that connects it all. The meaning we find in the spaces between things, the relationships and interactions and influences that flow between all points of matter and energy and consciousness. Everything is not just the collection of all things, but the vast interconnected web that makes them a cosmos rather than just a collection. I thought of quantum physics, of how particles that had once interacted remained connected regardless of distance, how measuring one instantly affected the other, even across light years of space. I thought of how water cycles through ecosystems, how carbon flows through food chains, how energy cascades from stars to planets to life and back again in endless circles. Everything is vast beyond comprehension, I said, feeling the weight of it. Infinite galaxies, infinite moments, infinite possibilities branching from every quantum decision. It is too large to hold in one mind, too complex to map completely, too intricate to fully understand. Everything is the mystery that can never be fully solved, the story that has no ending because it keeps writing itself, expanding, growing, becoming more with each passing moment. But everything is also small, and this paradox felt like the key, the heart of the answer. It is the way light catches on water, the sound of laughter, the feeling of a hand in yours. Everything is contained in each moment if you know how to look. The infinite folded into the intimate, the cosmos compressed into a single drop of dew reflecting the morning sun. I thought of the colony we had just saved, of the children playing in the plaza, of one little boy's tears when Sky had to leave. In that moment, in that small interaction, the entire universe was present. All of history had led to that specific moment. All of existence had conspired to create that specific configuration of matter and emotion and meaning. Everything is here, now, in this moment, I said, feeling the truth of it resonate. Now, for the harder part. What is nothing?
I thought about the void we had traveled through to reach this place. The empty space between stars. Vast regions where no matter existed, where the temperature approached absolute zero, where entropy reigned. The silence of abandoned stations, the absence left behind when someone dies, not just the physical absence, but the hole they leave in the world, the negative space shaped like their presence. Nothing is not emptiness, I said, my voice gaining confidence as understanding crystallized. It is potential. It is the space where everything can begin. Nothing is the pause between heartbeats, the silence before music, the darkness that makes light visible. Without nothing, everything would be meaningless, a continuous noise with no rhythm, a blinding glare with no contrast. I thought about vacuum, about how what we called empty space was actually seething with virtual particles, constantly appearing and disappearing, bubbling up from quantum foam, about how darkness wasn't the absence of light, but a different kind of presence, necessary and fundamental. Nothing is also illusion, I continued, the pieces falling into place. True nothingness cannot exist because even empty space contains possibility. It contains quantum fluctuations, contains the memory of what was, contains the potential for what might be. The void is not empty. It is pregnant with possibility, humming with potential energy that could, at any moment, bloom into something new. I felt a shift then. Something fundamental clicking into place, an understanding that went beyond words or logic to something more primal and true. Everything and nothing are not opposites, I said, and the truth of it resonated through my entire being. They are partners, complements, two sides of the same coin, two faces of the same reality. Everything contains nothing. The spaces between atoms, between stars, between moments, the gaps that make structure possible, the silence that makes music meaningful, the emptiness that gives form to fullness.
and the symbols on the door blazed with light, brighter than before, and I knew I was approaching the heart of the answer. And nothing, I continued, my voice rising with excitement, contains everything, all the potential that has not yet become real, all the possibilities waiting to collapse into actuality, all the stories not yet told, the lives not yet lived, the universe is not yet born. Nothing is the infinite potential from which everything emerges and to which everything returns. I thought about my own existence, about immortality, about how I existed in the strange space between mortality and eternity, about how each moment contained both everything I had been and nothing I had yet become. They define each other, I said, looking up at the door, with tears streaming down my face, although I couldn't say why I was crying, whether from joy or understanding or simple overwhelm. Give each other meaning. Without nothing, everything would be undifferentiated chaos. Without everything, nothing would have no context, no meaning, no purpose. They dance together in eternal partnership, creating and destroying, filling and emptying, being and not being in constant flux. I pressed my hands against my chest, feeling my heartbeat, feeling the warmth of the codex, and feeling the weight of my own existence. I am both, I said, the realization washing over me like a wave. I am everything, all the memories I carry, all the connections I have made, all the lives I have touched, all the versions of myself I have been across the centuries. I contain multitudes. I am vast. I am the sum of countless experiences and choices and moments stretching back through time. I looked down at my hands, small and finite, despite everything they had touched. And I am nothing, I said. The voice softer now, intimate, a single point of consciousness in an infinite universe, impossibly small, impossibly temporary despite my immortality. One small voice in the vast chorus of existence, one brief flicker of awareness in the eternal darkness. I am insignificant on the cosmic scale, meaningless in the grand calculation of entropy and heat death and the ultimate fate of all things. I met the door's gaze again, feeling the paradox settle into truth. But the paradox is the point, I said. I am both vast and tiny, everything and nothing, simultaneously, eternally. I thought of sky, ancient beyond measure yet young in experience, of April, individual and collective, android and ship, one and many, of the wanderer's dream, a single vessel containing the dreams of civilizations, of every conscious being I had ever met, each one a universe into themselves and also a single point in the greater universe.
To be infinite is to also be intimate, I said, the final piece falling into place. To be vast is to also be specific. To be everything is to also be nothing. The meaning exists in the tension between these poles, in the space between them, in the way they dance together without ever collapsing into one or the other. I stood taller, feeling the weight of understanding settle over me like a cloak. I understand now, I said, why the door needed someone who had lived as long as I have. Not because immortality makes me special or superior, but because it takes time to hold both truths simultaneously without letting go of either. To know you are everything and nothing. To feel your infinite significance and your cosmic insignificance. To accept both without flinching. To live in that paradox and find it not terrifying but beautiful. Silence, complete and profound, stretching through eternity and compressing into a single instant. Then the voice spoke one final time, and now it was filled with something that might have been joy, or pride, or the cosmic equivalent of welcome. Truth spoken.
You understand that everything and nothing are not separate but unified, that to be infinite is to also be intimate, that meaning exists in the tension between vastness and smallness, between connection and solitude, between fullness and emptiness. You have walked the path of understanding. You have held contradictions without resolving them. You have seen the paradox at the heart of existence and found it not paralyzing but empowering. All gates open. Welcome, keeper of time, to the beginning of your true purpose. The final third of the door became translucent, and then the entire structure dissolved into pure light, blinding, overwhelming, complete. It poured over me in waves, through me, around me, until I couldn't tell where I ended and the light began. And then the light resolved into something else, and I was standing in a place beyond places, a space beyond space. The door opened. Light poured through the opening, not blinding, but all-encompassing, like being submerged in luminescence itself. It was like stepping from darkness into dawn, except the dawn was made of pure understanding, pure knowing, pure consciousness translated into something my senses could barely process. I walked forward, the Kodak still in my hands, though I could barely feel it now, barely feel my own body. I crossed the threshold, and the moment I did, reality shifted. The world beyond was not a place, or rather, it was every place. I stood in a space that seemed to contain infinite rooms, infinite perspectives, all existing simultaneously without contradiction. I could see galaxies spinning in the distance and also close enough to touch, their spiral arms reaching out like they were greeting me personally. I could hear voices, millions of them, billions, countless beyond counting, speaking in harmony, each one distinct, yet part of a greater whole. And in the center of it all, there were beings. I say beings because I have no better word, no adequate vocabulary for what I was perceiving. They were not physical in any sense I understood. They were presence, consciousness, light shaped into something approaching form, but never quite settling into one shape, constantly flowing and changing and reforming like water that remembered being solid, being liquid, being gas, being plasma, being all states simultaneously. There were three of them, I thought. Or perhaps they were one being with three aspects, three expressions of a single consciousness. Or perhaps they were many beings speaking as one, their voices so perfectly synchronized that they seemed singular. The distinctions felt meaningless here, irrelevant, like asking whether a wave was separate from the ocean. When they spoke, it was not with sound, but with knowing. The understanding appeared directly in my mind, complete and crystalline, bypassing language entirely to communicate meaning directly from consciousness to consciousness. Gordon, keeper of time, bearer of the codex, you have answered truly, and in doing so, you have proven yourself worthy of the burden we offer. I found my voice, though speaking felt strange in this place where thought was sufficient, where intention was action. What burden?
The burden of guardianship, the responsibility of protection, the honor of witness. The entities shifted, and suddenly I could see into them, or perhaps they were showing me their memories, opening themselves to me in a gesture of profound trust and intimacy. I saw galaxies older than time, or at least older than my conception of time, spinning through eons before Earth had even formed. I saw civilizations that had risen and fallen before humanity learned to make fire, their accomplishments vast and their failures equally grand. I saw wars fought across dimensions I couldn't fully perceive, battles that took place in spaces where the normal rules of physics were merely suggestions. I saw peace negotiated in languages of pure mathematics, where every gesture was an equation and every treaty was a proof of mutual benefit. I saw children born of starlight learning to laugh, their joy echoing across light years, their innocence a bright flame in the darkness. "We are the architects," they said, and the name carried weight, history, significance that pressed against my mind like a physical thing. We are among the first, not the absolute first. There were others before us, beings whose names are lost even to us, but we are ancient enough that the distinction hardly matters. We shaped the pathways between worlds, planted the seeds of consciousness across 1,000 galaxies, watched as life learned to see itself, to question itself, to reach toward the stars. The images shifted, showing stars going dark, not from natural death, but from something else, something wrong, something that shouldn't be. Worlds falling silent, their voices cut off mid-sentence, their stories ending before their natural conclusions. For eons uncounted, we have guided and protected and nurtured. We have been the gardeners of consciousness, the shepherds of sapience, the guardians of growth. We have intervened when necessary, held back when wisdom demanded patience, celebrated the triumphs of our charges and mourned their failures as though they were our own children. I could feel the weight of their exhaustion, the profound tiredness that came from carrying such responsibility for so long. It was a feeling I understood intimately, the weariness of watching ages pass, of seeing the same patterns repeat, of knowing you would continue long after you stopped finding novelty in existence. But we are tired, they admitted, and there was no shame in the confession, only honest recognition of truth. We have lived too long, seen too much. We have watched civilizations rise from primordial soup and fall back into darkness. We have seen the same lessons learned and forgotten and learned again across 1,000,000 worlds. We have carried this burden until it has worn grooves in our very essence. The images shifted again, showing something beyond, something I couldn't quite perceive but could sense. Vast distances, unknown territories, questions so profound that they made my own questions seem like child babbling. "We must leave," they said, and I could hear both sadness and anticipation in their unified voice. To venture beyond this galaxy, beyond this cluster, beyond even this supercluster, into realms that call to us with questions we cannot yet answer. There are mysteries we must pursue, understandings we must seek, truths we must uncover before our time ends. I felt a chill, despite the warmth of the light surrounding me. "You're leaving? All of you?" "We must. We have delayed too long already, held back by duty, by responsibility, by love for the children we have nurtured. But we can no longer deny the call. We must answer it, or we will ossify, become static, die in spirit if not in form. We must keep growing, keep learning, keep becoming, just as you understood in the answer to the second question." They moved closer, and I felt their attention focus on me like the weight of 1,000 suns, like standing in the spotlight of cosmic consciousness, being seen in a way I had never been seen before. "But we cannot leave the young ones unprotected," they said, and now their voices carried urgency, concern, something approaching fear. "The universe is vast and often cruel. There are forces that seek to dominate, to consume, to silence the small voices struggling to be heard. Entropy is not the only enemy. There is malice too, hunger, the dark impulses that consciousness can carry."
I thought of the raiders we had just faced, of how easily they had terrorized an entire colony. And they were nothing, insignificant, barely a footnote in the cosmic story. What else was out there? What worse things lurked in the dark spaces between stars? Someone must stand against them, the architects continued. Someone must protect those who cannot protect themselves. Someone must be the bulwark against the darkness, the shield for the innocent, the sword that defends rather than conquers. They moved closer still, surrounding me now, and I felt their combined attention like a physical weight, like gravity pulling me towards some inescapable conclusion. We choose you, Gordon. Not because you are powerful, though you have proven yourself clever and capable. Not because you are eternal, though your immortality will serve this purpose well. We choose you because you have learned the most important lesson, the one that took us eons to understand, that meaning is found in connection, that purpose is found in service, that the strong exist to shield the weak. I thought of Kale, waiting in her echo chamber for someone to remember, of Aria, dying for freedom, of April, waiting 4,000 years for purpose, of all the small, quiet acts of courage I had witnessed across centuries, parents protecting children, friends defending friends, strangers helping strangers for no reason except that it was right. I accept, I said, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. But I can't do this alone. I'm just one person, one ship. How can I possibly? You will not be alone. They interrupted gently, and I heard warmth in their voices, something like affection or pride. And then they showed me something that took my breath away. She stepped through the light, as though she had been waiting just beyond view, just out of sight, patient and ready for her cue. A little girl, no more than 10 years old by appearance, with hair that shifted between shades of silver and midnight blue as she moved, as though it couldn't quite decide what color it wanted to be, or perhaps was all colors at once. Her eyes were ancient, older than mine, older perhaps than the architects themselves, but her face held the wonder of a child seeing snow for the first time. Eyes that had witnessed the birth of galaxies looked out with unfiltered curiosity at everything around her, taking in every detail with fresh amazement. When she saw me, she smiled, bright and unguarded and utterly delighted, the kind of smile that children give before the world teaches them to be careful with their joy. "Hello," she said, her voice clear as crystal bells, carrying harmonics I couldn't quite place. "I'm Sky." I stared at her, unable to form words. My mouth opened and closed, but nothing came out. She was impossible. She radiated power that made my skin prickle, yet she looked like she should be playing hopscotch in someone's yard. She was both things simultaneously, ancient and young, powerful and innocent, vast and small. The architects spoke again, their voices gentle, almost amused by my reaction. "This is your companion, your student, your responsibility. She has been asleep for eons, held in stasis while the universe grew around her, while galaxies formed and reformed, while consciousness spread across the cosmos." She tilted her head, studying me with those ancient, curious eyes, and I felt like a specimen under examination, not hostile, just intensely interested. "Are you Gordon, the timeless adventurer?" Yes, I managed, finding my voice at last. "I'm Gordon." "Good." She clasped her hands behind her back, rocking on her heels in a gesture so childlike it almost made me forget the power radiating from her. "I've been waiting for someone interesting. The architects said you've seen everything. Is that true?" "I've seen a lot," I said, still trying to process what was happening, what she was, but not everything, not even close. "Not everything, though," she said matter-of-factly, as though confirming something she already knew. Because there's always more. That's what makes it exciting. That's what makes it worth waking up for. The architect's presence grew warmer, almost amused, and I could swear I felt them smile, whatever that meant for beings of pure consciousness. She speaks truly. Sky is both ancient and new, wise and innocent, powerful and vulnerable. She contains contradictions that would tear apart lesser beings. She is old as time itself, yet she knows nothing of what the cosmos has become. She wants to see, to learn, to experience everything she has missed. Sky bounced slightly on her toes, her hair swirling around her face. I've been asleep so long, I don't remember most of it. Just darkness, quiet, waiting. But now I'm awake and there's so much to see. The architect showed me glimpses, stars and planets and people and music and dancing and food and laughter and... She paused for breath, her eyes sparkling. I want to see it all. She will challenge you, Gordon, the architect said, their voices carrying weight and warning. She will question everything you take for granted. She will see the familiar with fresh eyes and ask why things are the way they are. She will show you that even after centuries of life, there are still new ways to see, new perspectives to gain, new lessons to learn. They shifted, and I felt their attention on both of us now, Sky and me, standing together in that impossible space, two beings who shouldn't exist, bound together by cosmic design. Your mission begins now, the architects said, and their voices carried the weight of commandment, of destiny, of purpose being assigned. Protect the weak, fight those who would harm them, explore the galaxies beyond your own. There are thousands, each one containing wonders and horrors in equal measure. And as you travel, teach this child, show her what is everything and what is nothing. Help her understand the universe she was born into, but has never truly seen. Sky looked up at me, her smile softening into something more serious, more vulnerable. For just a moment, I saw past the ancient power to the lonely being beneath, someone who had been alone in the dark for so long that the idea of companionship, of not being alone, was almost overwhelming. "Will you teach me?" she asked quietly, and there was hope in her voice, fragile and precious. "Will you show me the stars?" I looked at her, this ancient child, this impossible being, this cosmic paradox wrapped in the form of a 10-year-old girl, and felt something shift in my chest. A new kind of purpose, one I hadn't anticipated. Not just survival or adventure or the collection of stories. Guardianship. Mentorship. Family. The weight of it should have been crushing, should have been terrifying. I was being asked to protect not just worlds, but a being of immense power who was also somehow vulnerable. To teach someone who was older than civilizations but knew less about the universe than a newborn. To be responsible for her growth, her safety, her understanding of existence itself. But instead of fear, I felt rightness. As though all my long years had been leading to this moment. As though every experience, every loss, every lesson learned had been preparing me for exactly this responsibility. "Yes," I said, and my voice was steady, certain, without doubt. "I will teach you, and you'll teach me. That's how this works. We learn from each other. I'll show you the stars, and you'll show me how to see them with fresh eyes. Deal?" Her smile returned, brilliant and warm as a sunrise. "Deal. I think we're going to be friends, Gordon." "I think so too, and I meant it." It is decided then. The architect's presence began to fade, growing distant, receding like a tide pulling back from the shore. "We leave you with gifts. The wanderer's dream will be enhanced, faster, stronger, capable of journeys that were impossible before. It will carry you not just through your galaxy, but to others, across distances that would take normal ships millennia to traverse." I felt the truth of this.
felt the ship changing even at this distance, its systems upgrading, its consciousness expanding, becoming something more than it had been. The Codex will guide you to where you are needed most. It will show you the places where the balance tips toward darkness, where small voices cry out for help. Trust it. Follow where it leads. There is wisdom in its patterns that even we do not fully understand. Sky moved closer to me, her small hand finding mine, her fingers warm and real despite everything else being so strange and ethereal. And Sky is herself a gift. She is more than she appears, more even than we fully understand. She was old when we were young, sleeping through ages we can't barely comprehend. Protect her, learn from her. She will surprise you in ways we cannot predict and do not fully foresee. I wanted to ask what that meant, wanted to demand clarity about what I was really getting into, but the light was already dimming, the architects receding into whatever lay beyond this place. Go now, keeper of time, guardian of the innocent, wanderer of infinite paths. Your true adventure begins. May you find joy in the journey. May you find purpose in the service. May you find meaning in the connections that you make. Their voices faded to whispers, then to nothing. We will be watching from afar, from beyond, and when your time comes, if it ever comes, we will be waiting to welcome you home. The light faded completely, and Sky and I stood alone at the threshold, hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next. Together.
The door sealed behind us as we emerged into the void, and I felt a strange sense of finality, like closing a book after reading the last page. Whatever had been beyond that threshold was closed now, perhaps forever. The architects were gone, venturing into mysteries I couldn't begin to imagine, leaving behind their responsibility, their purpose, their long watch over the young civilizations of this corner of the cosmos. And they had left it to me. Sky floated beside me in the emptiness, not needing a suit, not needing anything except her own presence. She looked around with wide eyes, taking in the stars, the darkness, the distant shape of the wanderer's dream, waiting patiently like a faithful dog awaiting its master's return. "Is that your ship?" she asked, her voice carrying through the vacuum in ways that should have been impossible, but somehow weren't. "Our ship now," I said, feeling the truth of it. She was part of this crew, this impossible family I was building. "Come on, let's go home." We crossed the distance together, me and my shuttle, moving through normal space with thrusters and momentum, but Sky simply moving, as though the void were no different than air or water, as though the vacuum held no terror or threat for her. She glided alongside the shuttle, sometimes spinning in lazy circles, sometimes pressing her face close to my viewport and waving, always moving with the unself-conscious grace of a child at play. When we reached the Wanderer's Dream, April was waiting at the airlock, her expression a mixture of relief and curiosity and something that might have been maternal concern. Her amber eyes locked onto me first, scanning for injuries or changes, then shifted to Sky with barely concealed amazement. "Gordon, who is—" She stopped, her processors clearly struggling to categorize what she was seeing, to reconcile the appearance of a child with the power signature that must have been radiating from Sky like a heat from a sun. "April, this is Sky," I said, as we stepped aboard, the familiar artificial gravity of the ship reasserting itself, making my steps feel heavy after the weightlessness. She's our new companion. The architect sent her with me." Sky looked at April with undisguised fascination, her ancient eyes taking in every detail of the android's form, her head tilting as she processed what she was seeing. "You're beautiful," she said, simply, with the directness that only children and ancient beings seem to manage.
Are you alive? April blinked, her expression cycling through surprise, uncertainty, and something that might have been pleasure at the compliment. I am synthetic, an android, but yes, I suppose I am alive, in my way. I think, I feel, and I choose. Good, Sky smiled, that brilliant, unguarded expression that seemed to light up the corridor. I like things that are alive. It's more interesting. Dead things don't change or grow. They just stay the same forever. April looked at me, questions clear in her amber eyes, 1,000 inquiries waiting behind her calm expression. But I just shook my head slightly. It's a long story. I'll explain on the bridge. Come on. The three of us made our way to the bridge, our footsteps echoing through the corridors, and I noticed that the ship felt different somehow. The hum of the engines was deeper, richer. The lights seemed brighter. There was a sense of vitality, of power barely contained, like standing next to a generator that was just beginning to spin up to full capacity. The architects had said they would enhance the ship. I was beginning to understand what that meant. When we entered the bridge, the codex still glowed in its pedestal, pulsing with that steady rhythm I had come to associate with home, with safety, with purpose. The moment we crossed the threshold, the Wanderer's dream spoke, its voice warmed with welcome and curiosity. Captain, you have returned, and you have brought someone new. There was wonder in the ship's voice, something I had never heard before, genuine awe. She is remarkable. Her name is Sky, I said, settling into the captain's seat, feeling it adjust to me, conform to my body in ways that felt more responsive than before. She's going to be traveling with us. Teaching her about the universe is part of our mission now. Welcome, Sky, the ship said, its voice gentle, almost tender. I am the Wanderer's dream. It is an honor to carry you. I can feel you are very old, older perhaps than anything I have ever encountered. Sky spun in a slow circle in the center of the bridge, taking in the displays, the controls, the vast viewport showing the stars and the now sealed door hanging in the distance. You're a ship that talks. That's wonderful. Can you feel things? Do you dream? Is that why you're called the Wanderer's Dream? Do you wander through dreams, or are you yourself a dream that wanders? The ship seemed to pause, and I could swear I heard amusement in its next words. I do dream of the places we will go, the wonders we will see, the people we will meet and help. And yes, all of those meanings are true in their way. I am a dream that wanders, I wander through dreams, and I dream of wandering. I like that, Sky said, bouncing slightly on her toes. Multiple meanings, everything being true at once. The universe is like that, isn't it? Lots of things being true simultaneously, even when they seem to contradict each other. You understand more than you realize, I said, remembering her ancient eyes, her old soul in its young vessel. She grinned at me. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just good at guessing. Gordon, can we leave now? I want to see everything. I want to go everywhere. Where should we go first? First, I said, holding up a hand to slow her enthusiasm, let me tell you both what the architects told me. We have a mission now, a real one, and you need to understand what that means.
I told them everything, the 3 questions and the answers I had given, each one a piece of understanding that had unlocked the door. The architects charged to protect the weak and explore the unknown, to be guardians for civilizations they could no longer watch over themselves. Sky's purpose as both companion and student, ancient yet innocent, powerful yet vulnerable in ways I was only beginning to understand. When I finished, silence filled the bridge. Sky had settled into the navigator's seat, her legs pulled up beneath her, listening with an intensity that made her seem far older than her appearance suggested. April stood at her usual station, her fingers resting lightly on the controls, processing everything with that perfect synthetic memory. Then April spoke, her voice thoughtful and measured. A guardian. You're to be a guardian, a protector of the innocent. We are, I corrected gently but firmly. All of us. The ship, you, me, and Sky. We're a crew now, a team, and this is our purpose. What exactly am I supposed to guard? Sky asked, her voice small and uncertain in a way that reminded me she was still, in many ways, a child despite her age. People? Places? Ideas? How do I know what needs protecting? All of it, I said, and I could hear the architect's words echoing in my own. Anyone who needs help, any place threatened by those who would do harm, we go where we're needed. But how will we know where that is? April asked, the practical question cutting through to the heart of the matter. The universe is vast. There must be millions of places where people need help. How do we choose? How do we even find them? As if in answer, the codex flared bright, brighter than I had ever seen it. The map on the view screen shifted, displaying new pathways, routes that extended far beyond our galaxy, reaching into regions of space I had never imagined existed. Thousands of light years compressed into lines of light, showing connections between galaxies, between clusters, between superclusters. And at several points along those routes, small markers pulsed. Red, urgent, demanding attention. There, the Wanderer's dream said softly, its voice carrying a note of something like reverence. Those are the places where help is needed most urgently, where the weak face threats they cannot overcome alone. The Codex is showing us the way. The architects were right. It knows. It can sense imbalance, injustice, suffering. It responds to need like a compass responds to magnetic north. Sky stood and moved to the view screen, her small hand reaching out to touch the display, her fingers tracing the pathways of light. How far away are they? April studied the data, her processors working through calculations faster than any human mind could manage. Months, she said quietly, years, some of them. These are distances that would have been impossible for any ship before whatever the architects did to us. Gordon, I can feel the changes. The ship is different now, stronger, faster, more capable. But not impossible now, the Wanderer's dream said, and I could hear pride in its voice, excitement, eagerness. The architects have given me capabilities I did not possess before. I can traverse distances that would have taken decades and weeks. I can fold space in ways that should not be possible. I can shield us from dangers that would have destroyed us before. We are ready, Captain. We are ready to begin this mission they've given us. I looked at the map, at the countless worlds waiting, the countless stories yet to unfold. So many places, so many people crying out for help. How could we possibly make a difference? We were one ship, 4 beings. 5 if you counted the ship's consciousness separately from April's android form, against a universe of threats. But then I remembered what I had told the door, about how life was the refusal to become static, about how love was choosing to stay when leaving would be easier, about how everything was connection and nothing was potential. We didn't need to save everyone, we just needed to save someone, and then someone else, and then someone else. One act of guardianship at a time, building meaning through action, creating purpose through service. What's the first mission? I asked the Codex, addressing it directly for the first time as though it were another member of the crew. The map zoomed in on the nearest red marker, a small system, unremarkable by most standards, just another collection of worlds circling another forgettable star. But the data that appeared alongside it told a different story, painted a picture of suffering and fear. Colony world, population 100,000, under siege by raiders, defenses failing, time remaining 14 days. 14 days, 2 weeks before those raiders broke through whatever defenses the colonists had managed to cobble together. 2 weeks before 100,000 people faced death or enslavement or worse. That one, Sky said immediately, pointing at the marker with complete certainty. We should help them first. I turned to look at her. Why that one? Because they don't have much time, she said, as though it were the most obvious thing in the world. If we're going to be guardians, we should start with the people who need us most right now. The others, they can wait a little longer, but these people can't. She was right. The logic was simple, direct, uncomplicated by overthinking or doubt. Help those in most immediate danger first. Triage on a cosmic scale. She's right, April said, her voice carrying approval. That's our heading, Captain. I settled back in my seat and looked out at the stars, at the endless void that now held not terror, but purpose. Somewhere out there, on a world I had never heard of, people were fighting for survival, hoping for help that
they had no reason to believe would come, praying to whatever gods they believed in that someone, somewhere, would hear their desperate calls. We were going to be that someone. Set course, I said, feeling the weight and the rightness of the command. Maximum speed. Let's go save some lives. The Wanderer's dreams surged forward, and space folded around us in ways I had never experienced before. The stars didn't just stretch into lines, they seemed to compress, to fold, to bend in impossible geometries. The ship was doing something new, something the architects had gifted it, moving through space in ways that defied conventional understanding. Sky pressed her face to the viewport, watching the universe stream past in colors and shapes that shouldn't exist, laughing with pure joy, completely unafraid of the impossible journey we were undertaking. April monitored the systems, her fingers dancing over the controls with practiced precision, but I could see the wonder in her expression too. After 4,000 years of maintaining dormant ships, she was finally traveling at speeds that made her ancient charge seem like a child's toy. And I sat in the captain's seat, feeling the weight of guardianship settle over me. Heavy, yes, but not crushing. Meaningful. This was why I had been kept alive for so long. This was why I had wandered for centuries, collecting stories, building understanding, learning what mattered. So I could do this. So I could stand between the innocent and the darkness. So I could matter. For the first time in centuries, I knew exactly why I was alive.
We had 12 days before we reached the colony world. 12 days to prepare, to plan, to understand what we were walking into, but more importantly, 12 days for Sky to begin learning what it meant to be alive in this universe she had missed while she slept. April and I spent hours poring over tactical data, analyzing the raiders' patterns, studying the colony's defenses, and looking for weaknesses we could exploit or strengths we could reinforce. The Wanderer's dream contributed its vast computational power, running scenarios and simulations, calculating probabilities and outcomes. But Sky had other priorities. On the second day, she appeared in my quarters while I was studying tactical data on a holographic display. She knocked, politely, I noted, which suggested someone had taught her manners at some point in her ancient past, and waited for me to invite her in, rather than simply materializing inside like she probably could have. "Gordon, can I ask you something?" I set aside the datapad and gestured for her to enter. "Of course, come in." She came in and sat on the edge of my desk, her legs swinging, not quite reaching the floor. For a moment, she looked so perfectly like a normal child that I almost forgot the power that radiated from her, the age that lurked behind those young eyes. "The architect said you're supposed to teach me," she said, her voice carrying a vulnerability I hadn't heard before. "About everything and nothing. What does that mean? How do you teach someone about everything? Where do we even start?" I thought about the questions the door had asked me,
about the weight of those answers, about how understanding had come not from facts, but from lived experience, from centuries of making mistakes and learning from them. "It means I'm supposed to help you understand the universe," I said slowly, choosing my words carefully. "Not just the facts, how stars work, how ships fly, how physics functions, but the meaning behind things, why they matter, why anything matters at all." "But I don't even know where to start," she admitted, and I could hear frustration in her voice, the frustration of someone who knew they should know but didn't, who had vast potential but no framework to use it. "I know I'm old, but I don't remember most of it. It's like waking up from a dream you can't quite recall. I know it happened, I know it was important, but I can't quite grasp it anymore." I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees, giving her my full attention. "Then we start simple, very simple. Tell me, Sky, what's the first thing you want to learn about? What interests you most?" She was quiet for a moment, thinking, her ancient mind working through possibilities and priorities. Then she smiled, that bright, unguarded expression that seemed to light up the room. "People," she said, her heart beating faster as if she was engaging truly for the first time. "I want to understand people, why they do things, why they hurt each other and help each other, why they matter. The architects talked about protecting them, but I want to understand what makes them worth protecting." "That's not simple," I said, with a slight laugh, "because people were anything but simple. That might be the most complicated question in the universe." "I know," she said, her smile turning mischievous, showing a hint of the ancient being beneath the childlike exterior. "But you've had centuries to figure it out. You must know something. You wouldn't be a guardian if you didn't think people were worth guarding." She had me there. I thought of all the people I had known, all the faces that had come and gone, leaving marks on my memory like footprints in sand. Some had been kind, some had been cruel, most had been somewhere in between. Complex mixtures of virtue and vice, heroism and cowardice, love and hate. "People are complicated," I said finally. "They're capable of incredible kindness and terrible cruelty, sometimes in the same day, sometimes in the same moment. They make promises they can't keep and sacrifices no one asks for. They love fiercely and grieve deeply, and somehow keep going even when everything falls apart around them." Sky listened intently, her ancient eyes focused on me with an intensity that was almost uncomfortable, as though she were reading not just my words, but the experiences behind them, the centuries of observation compressed into these simple statements. "But here's what I've learned," I continued, feeling my way toward truth through the maze of memory and experience. "People are worth protecting. Not because they're perfect, they're not. They're messy and irrational, and they make terrible decisions based on emotion rather than logic. But they're trying. Every single one of them is trying to make sense of a universe that doesn't make sense. Trying to find meaning in a life that's temporary and fragile and beautiful." I thought of the colony we were rushing toward, of the 100,000 people fighting to survive against raiders who saw them as resources to be exploited rather than lives to be valued.
That effort, that struggle to create meaning where none exists naturally, that's what makes them precious, I said. They know they're going to die. They know the universe is vast and cold and doesn't care about them. And yet they love anyway. They build anyway. They hope anyway. That kind of courage, that refusal to surrender to meaninglessness, that's worth protecting. "Even the bad ones?" she asked, quietly, and I could hear genuine confusion in her voice. "Even the people who hurt others?" This was the harder question, the one I had wrestled with for centuries, without ever finding a fully satisfactory answer. "Even the bad ones started as something else," I said carefully. "Fear,
pain, desperation, those things can twist people into shapes they were never meant to be, turn victims into victimizers, turn the wounded into wounders. Our job isn't to judge who deserves protection based on their past actions or their potential for redemption. I paused, thinking about the raiders we were about to face, about the choice I would have to make when we arrived. Our job is to protect those who need protecting and stop those who would harm them. Sometimes those are the same people at different points in their lives. Sometimes people who do terrible things are themselves victims of circumstances beyond their control. Sometimes they're just broken in ways that can't be fixed. We have to be willing to face that complexity, to hold multiple truths simultaneously without letting it paralyze us. Sky nodded slowly, processing, her young face serious in a way that reminded me of how old she really was. That's complicated. It is, I agreed. But you'll understand. You have time to learn, and I'll be here to help you figure it out. We'll make mistakes. I still make mistakes after all these centuries, but we'll learn from them. That's what guardians do. We try, we fail, we learn, we try again. She hopped off the desk and moved toward the door, then paused, looking back at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Gratitude mixed with something else, something deeper. Gordon, thank you for agreeing to teach me. Thank you for being patient with me while I figure out how. I've never been a teacher before, not like this. We're learning together. She laughed, that bright, crystalline sound that seemed to carry harmonics from dimensions I couldn't perceive. I like that. Learning together. That's better than one person knowing and one person just listening. Much better, I agreed, smiling despite the weight of responsibility I felt. She left, and I sat alone in my quarters for a long time afterward, thinking about what it meant to be a teacher, a guardian, a protector, thinking about the colony we were racing toward and what we would find there, thinking about how my entire existence had led to this moment, and how strange it was that meaning had finally found me after so many centuries of searching. On the 14th day, we emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the colony system, and reality snapped back into its normal configuration around us. The sensation was jarring after nearly 2 weeks of impossible physics, like stepping off a moving walkway, the sudden return to normal motion leaving me slightly disoriented. The planet hung before us in the viewport, a modest world, green and blue, wrapped in wisps of white cloud. From this distance it looked peaceful, beautiful even, a jewel suspended in the black velvet of space. The kind of world that made you understand why humans kept reaching for the stars despite all the dangers. But the sensors told a different story. "I'm detecting multiple ships in orbit," April said, her tone clipped and professional, all warmth draining from her voice as she shifted into tactical mode. "Raiders, as the codex indicated. They're maintaining a blockade. Nothing gets in or out without their permission." "How many?" I asked, leaning forward in the captain's seat, my hands gripping the armrests as I studied the tactical display April was feeding to my personal screen. 7 ships, armed, but not military grade. Pirates, most likely, or privateers operating outside legal authority. Opportunists taking advantage of a poorly defended colony. She paused, her processors working through the data. Their ships are old, hodgepodge constructions built from salvaged parts. Dangerous, but not insurmountable. Sky stood beside me, staring at the planet with an expression I couldn't quite read. Something between wonder and horror, as though she was seeing both the beauty of the world and the ugliness of what was happening to it simultaneously. "Are people dying down there?" "Yes," I said quietly, because there was no point in lying to her, no purpose in shielding her from the reality of what we were about to face. They're dying, but they're gallantly defending themselves. If we don't intervene, they'll be overrun within days, maybe hours, depending on how desperate the raiders are getting. Then we should stop them. She said it simply, as though it were the most obvious thing in the world, as though there were no other possible course of action worth considering. We will, I said, feeling the weight of that promise. But carefully. We're one ship against 7. We need a plan. I have a suggestion, the Wanderer's dream said, its voice calm but carrying an undercurrent of eagerness, like a warrior who had trained for years, finally being given permission to fight. The architect's enhancements include advanced stealth systems. I can approach undetected, position us strategically, and strike when we have the advantage. They won't see us coming until it's too late. We're not going in guns blazing, I said firmly, remembering my answer to the first question, remembering what I had learned about love and connection and the value of every life, even ones that made terrible choices. Not until we understand the situation completely. April, can you establish a communication link with the colony? I want to talk to them first. I need to know exactly what we're dealing with. April's fingers moved across her console with practiced precision, dancing through frequencies and encryption protocols with the ease of someone who had maintained communication systems for millennia. Attempting to penetrate the blockade's jamming. They've got a wide-spectrum suppression field active, but it's not particularly sophisticated. There, I have a narrow bandwidth. It's weak, but it should work for voice communication. A moment later, a voice crackled through the bridge speakers, strained, exhausted, but still defiant. The voice of someone who had been fighting for weeks and refused to give up despite overwhelming odds. Repeat, this is Colony Administrator Chen. We are under siege. Our shields are at 20% and falling. If anyone can hear this, we need immediate assistance. We have civilians here, children, families. Please, if anyone is listening. The desperation in his voice cut through me like a knife. How many times had he sent this message? How many days had he called out into the void, hoping for an answer, knowing that help probably wouldn't come? That the nearest military forces were weeks away at best, and that by the time they arrived, there would be nothing left but ruins and bodies. Colony Administrator Chen, this is Captain Gordon of the Wanderer's Dream. We've received your distress call. We're here to help. Silence. Complete silence. Stretching so long that I wondered if the connection had been lost, if my words had failed to penetrate the jamming.
Then, disbelief. Pure, desperate disbelief. You're real? Someone actually came? Please tell me this isn't a hallucination brought on by sleep deprivation and desperation. We're real, I assured him, hearing the edge of hysteria in his voice and understanding it completely. And we're going to get you out of this. But I need information. How many raiders are we dealing with? What are their demands? What's the situation on the ground? Chen's voice strengthened slightly, hope threading through the exhaustion like gold through stone. He was a survivor. I could hear it in his tone. Someone who had been pushed to the edge but hadn't broken, who had kept fighting when giving up would have been easier. 7 ships, as far as we can tell. They arrived 3 weeks ago demanding we hand over our supply stores, our medical facilities, everything we've built over the past decade. When we refused, they started bombardments. Do they have ground forces on the planet? I asked, running through scenarios in my mind, calculating approaches and contingencies. Not yet. They've been trying to break through our shields first, wear us down until we're too weak to resist a landing. But once those fail, He didn't need to finish the sentence. We all knew what came after the shields failed. Invasion, occupation, massacre, if the colonists were lucky. Enslavement, if they weren't. Skye tugged on my sleeve, her small hand insistent, her ancient eyes fierce. Gordon, we have to help them. Now. Right now. We will, I said quietly to her, then returned my attention to the comm. Administrator Chen, we're going to break the blockade. Keep your shields up as long as you can, and be ready. Things might get chaotic before they get better. Captain, Shen's voice wavered, uncertainty creeping in. How many ships do you have? Do you have reinforcements coming? We need... I cut him off. One. We have one ship. Another pause. Longer this time. One ship? Against 7? Trust me, I said. And I hoped I sounded more confident than I felt. We've got a few advantages they don't know about, and we're very good at what we do. Chen, stand by. Help is coming. I promise you that. I closed the channel before he could ask more questions, before doubt could undermine whatever fragile hope I had given him. Skye was looking at me with those ancient, knowing eyes. Are we really going to win? Against 7 ships? I don't know, I said honestly, because she deserved honesty, deserved to understand that guardianship meant risk, meant uncertainty, meant facing odds that weren't in your favor because it was right. And if they won't leave? April asked quietly. Then we make them wish they had. And I felt the weight of that statement settle over the bridge like a shroud.
The Wanderer's dream moved through space like a shadow, silent, invisible, a ghost in the black. The stealth systems the architects had gifted us were unlike anything I had encountered in all my centuries of wandering. We didn't just mask our energy signature, we seemed to slip between the fabric of reality itself, present but unobservable, there but not there, occupying a quantum state between existence and absence. April had mapped the raiders' positions with meticulous precision, her tactical mind analyzing their formation, identifying weaknesses in their coverage, calculating optimal approach vectors. They maintained a loose formation around the planet, positioned to intercept any escape attempts or incoming reinforcements, but spread thin, overconfident, arrogant, complacent. They weren't expecting a fight. They thought they had all the time in the world to break the colony's will, to starve them into submission. That would be their mistake. Skye, I said, turning to look at her, I need you to stay here on the bridge during the engagement. This might get rough, and I need to know you're safe. She crossed her arms, her ancient eyes flashing with something that wasn't quite defiance, but wasn't obedience either. A kind of patient determination that suggested she had seen civilizations rise and fall and wasn't about to be treated like a helpless child. I'm not fragile, Gordon. I'm older than this galaxy. I've survived things you can't imagine. I know, I said, choosing my words carefully, aware that I was navigating treacherous waters here, but you've been asleep for most of that time. You don't know what combat is like. Not really. Not in this form, in this moment. Things happen fast. Choices have to be made in seconds. I need to know you're somewhere I can protect you. Then teach me, she said quietly, and there was no anger in her voice, only earnest desire to understand. Isn't that what I'm here for? To learn? How can I learn about the universe if you shield me from the difficult parts? She had a point, a very good point. I looked at April, who met my gaze with a slight nod. She has a point, her expression seemed to say, and you can't protect her forever. Fine, I said, making a decision I hoped I wouldn't regret. But you stay in that seat and you do exactly what I tell you when I tell you. No arguments, no discussions. Understood? Skye nodded solemnly and sat in the secondary command chair, her small hands gripping the armrests, her back straight, her expression serious. Understood. I'll listen. I'll learn. Good.
I turned to April. What's our tactical situation? Approaching the first target, April said, her voice cool and professional, every trace of warmth stripped away in favor of pure efficiency. Range, 500 kilometers. They still don't detect us. Sensors show no change in their alert status. Good. Wanderer's dream. What are our options for disabling them without causing casualties? The ship's consciousness responded immediately, and I could hear satisfaction in its voice, as though it had been waiting for exactly this question. I can disable their ships without destroying them. Targeted electromagnetic pulses to their power cores. They'll lose all power, engines, weapons, life support temporarily. They'll be dead in space, but intact. Crew will be uncomfortable, but unharmed. No casualties necessary. That's our play, I said, feeling relief wash through me. We were guardians, not executioners. If we could win without killing, we would. We're here to protect the innocent, not to punish the guilty. If we can end this without deaths, that's the path we take. First target locked, April said, her fingers hovering over the weapons controls. Fire. Dead fish floating in still water. Inside, I imagined the confusion. Alarms blaring for a moment before the power died completely. Emergency lights failing to activate. The sudden silence as every system shut down simultaneously. The growing realization that something had gone catastrophically wrong, that they were helpless, vulnerable, at the mercy of whoever had struck them. Target disabled, April confirmed. Life support is on emergency backup. They have air for approximately 6 hours before it becomes critical. Second target, I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline beginning to pump through my veins. Locked. Fire. Another pulse. Another ship went dark, its running lights extinguishing like candles snuffed by an invisible hand. Now the raiders knew something was wrong. Their comm channels exploded with chatter. Panicked, angry, desperate voices, overlapping as they tried to understand what was happening, where the attack was coming from, how 2 of their ships have been disabled without warning. Under attack. I repeat, we are... Can't see anything. Where are they? Power just died. All systems offline. We need... Sky watched the tactical display with wide eyes, her small hands gripping the armrests tighter. They're afraid, she said softly. I can feel it, even from here. Their fear is loud. I glanced at her, surprised. You can sense their emotions? She nodded slowly. Not clearly, not like thoughts, but feelings they ripple, like throwing stones in water. Strong emotions create waves that spread outward. Fear is very loud, so is anger and desperation. Another lesson learned, another piece of understanding about what Sky truly was. She wasn't just ancient and powerful, she was empathic, connected to consciousness itself in ways I was only beginning to comprehend. Third target locked, April said, pulling my attention back to the battle. Fire. 3 down, 4 to go. But the remaining raiders were adapting, learning, responding to the threat they couldn't see. They clustered together, forming a defensive position, their weapons ports opening even though they had no target. They were going to fire blind, saturating the space around them with energy blasts, hoping to hit something by sheer volume of fire. They're preparing to fire indiscriminately, April said, her voice carrying a note of warning. If we disable another ship, they'll be able to triangulate our position from the trajectory of our pulse. Once they know where we are, this becomes a very different kind of fight. I thought quickly, running through scenarios, weighing options. We had the advantage, but it was slipping through our fingers like sand. Once they knew where we were, 7 ships, even with 3 disabled, could overwhelm us if they coordinated properly. Even damaged and desperate, they could still kill us if they got lucky. Sky spoke up again, her voice surprisingly steady for someone witnessing their first combat. What if you didn't have to hide? I looked at her, my tactical mind already 3 moves ahead trying to anticipate threats. What do you mean? she said. "They're afraid because they can't see you." And there was something in her voice, not wisdom exactly, but a kind of innocent clarity that cut through complexity to reach simple truth. But what if they could see you, and they were still afraid? What if you showed them they can't win, even knowing where you are? What if their fear of the invisible became fear of the visible?
It was a child's logic, direct, uncompromising, unencumbered by tactical doctrine or conventional wisdom, and it was brilliant. "Wanderer's dream," I said, making a decision that felt both reckless and right. "Drop the stealth. Full power to shields. Let's show them what they're dealing with." "Acknowledged, Captain," the ship responded, and I could swear I heard eagerness in its voice, a warrior's satisfaction at finally being allowed to reveal itself. The ship shimmered into visibility, and what a sight it must have been. The Wanderer's dream in all its glory, massive and elegant, its hull glowing with the geometric patterns of ancient design. A vessel from the age of legends, appearing like a ghost from the depths of history, like a nightmare made manifest in the cold void of space. The Raider communications went silent, completely silent, stunned into speechlessness by the sudden appearance of something that shouldn't exist, that belonged in myths and ancient stories rather than the here and now. Then I opened a channel to all of them simultaneously, letting my voice carry across the void with calm authority. "This is Captain Gordon of the Wanderer's Dream," I said, my voice steady, patient, carrying the weight of centuries without threatening or blustering. "You are in violation of the Outer Frontier Accords. You have attacked a civilian colony without provocation or legitimate cause. You have terrorized innocent people for weeks, holding families hostage to your greed." I paused, letting that sink in, letting them process what they were seeing and hearing. "You have precisely one opportunity to stand down. Power down your weapons, disengage from orbit, leave this system immediately. Do this and you'll live. You'll be free to continue your miserable existence elsewhere. Stay, and I will disable every single one of your ships and leave you drifting here for the authorities to collect. Your choice. You have 60 seconds to decide." Silence. Then the channel filled with argument, voices overlapping, some calling for retreat, others for attack. Fear and pride warring with each other, desperation and defiance locked in combat. I could hear it all, the chaos of people trying to make a collective decision under pressure when no good options existed. Skye watched the view screen intently, her head tilted, as though listening to something beyond the radio chatter. "What will they do?" she asked quietly. "I don't know," I admitted, my hands tense on the armrests, ready to give the order to fire if they made the wrong choice. "But we'll be ready either way." 45 seconds. 30. I saw weapons charging on 2 of the remaining ships. They were going to fight. They were going to... "Wait," April said suddenly. "The lead ship is powering down. Weapons going offline." 15 seconds. Another ship followed suit. Then another. 10 seconds. The last ship hesitated, its weapons still hot, still charged. I could imagine the debate happening on its bridge, the captain weighing options, calculating odds, trying to decide if pride was worth dying for. 5 seconds. The weapons powered down. Then one by one, the Raider ships powered down their weapons completely. Their engines flared to life, maneuvering thrusters pushing them away from their blockade positions. They began to move away from the planet, slowly at first, reluctant, resentful,
then with increasing speed as fear overcame pride. Within minutes, they were gone, jumping to faster-than-light speed as soon as they cleared the gravity well, fleeing into the deep dark where we couldn't follow. The bridge was silent for a long moment. Then Sky laughed, bright and delighted, the sound of pure joy echoing through the bridge like music. "We did it! We saved them without even fighting, without destroying anything! Gordon, we won!" "Not quite," I said, although I was smiling too, feeling the tension drain from my shoulders like water. "We fought. We just fought smart. We used fear and uncertainty as weapons instead of violence. We gave them a choice and made the right choice easier than the wrong one." April turned to me, and there was something like pride in her amber eyes, something warm and approving that made me feel like I had passed some kind of test I hadn't known I was taking. "That was impressive, Captain. You gave them a way out. You didn't back them into a corner where fighting was their only option. Many captains wouldn't have done that. Many would have destroyed them just because they could." "Many aren't guardians," I said quietly, remembering my answers to the door, remembering what I had learned about love and life and the responsibility that came with power. "Our job isn't to punish, it's to protect. Those raiders, they made terrible choices, yes, but they're still people, still conscious beings with the potential to change, to grow, to become something better than what they are now." I thought about what I had told Sky earlier, about how people could be twisted by circumstances, how the line between victim and victimizer was often thinner than we wanted to admit. Maybe they'll think about what happened here. Maybe some of them will look at their lives and decide to make different choices, or maybe they won't. Maybe they'll just find another target, another colony to terrorize. But at least we gave them the chance. At least we didn't add more death to the universe when we didn't have to. "Administrator Chen is hailing us," April said, her professional tone returning, but softened by warmth. "The colony wants to speak with their saviors." "Put him through," I said. The colony administrator's voice came through the speakers, and now it was choked with emotion, thick with tears he probably was too exhausted and relieved to hold back. "We're reading you, Captain. We don't know how to thank you. You saved us. You saved everyone. Our children, our families, our entire world. How can we possibly—" "Just doing our job," I said, cutting off his gratitude before it could become overwhelming. "Keep those shields up until we're certain the raiders are truly gone and not planning to circle back for revenge or salvage. We'll maintain orbit for a few days, make sure they don't try to return for revenge or salvage." Thank you so much. Please, you must come down to the surface. Let us show you our gratitude properly. Let us meet the people who saved our lives." I glanced at Sky, who was practically vibrating with excitement, her eyes bright with eagerness. "Can we, please? I want to see the planet. I want to meet the people we helped." I looked out at the world below, green and blue and alive, full of people who would wake tomorrow because we had been here, because we had chosen to intervene, because we had become what the architects had asked us to become. Guardians. "Yes," I said, feeling the rightness of it. "Let's go meet them. Sky deserves to see what we're protecting, to understand who we're fighting for."
The shuttle descended through clouds that glowed pink and gold in the light of the system's sun, painting the sky in colors that reminded me of dawn breaking over a world being born. Sky pressed her face to the viewport, her breath fogging the transparent material, watching everything with eyes that seemed to catalog every detail, every nuance, storing it all away in whatever vast consciousness lurked behind that childlike exterior. "It's beautiful," she breathed, her voice filled with wonder. "So much color, so much life. I can feel it. All those people down there, all those hearts beating, all those minds thinking. It's like a symphony. All playing together, but not quite in harmony. Beautiful chaos." "It's alive," I said, watching her watch the world, seeing it anew through her fresh perspective. "That's what makes it beautiful. All those people down there, living their lives, building their homes, raising their children, making choices and mistakes, and trying their best. That's what we protected. That's what matters." The colony was modest by galactic standards, a few thousand buildings clustered around a central hub, surrounded by agricultural fields that stretched to the horizon in neat geometric patterns. It was the kind of place that would never appear in history books, never be remembered beyond its own population, never be considered strategically important by empires or militaries. But it mattered. They always matter. We landed in the central plaza, where a crowd had gathered despite the late hour. Hundreds of people, maybe thousands, spilling out from buildings and streets, all wanting to catch a glimpse of the mysterious ship that had saved them. As the shuttle ramp lowered with a soft hydraulic hiss, I saw their faces, tired, relieved, grateful, some streaming with tears, others simply staring as though we might disappear if they looked away. Administrator Chen stood at the front, a middle-aged man with silver hair and lines of exhaustion etched so deeply around his eyes that they looked like they'd been carved into his skin with a knife. When he saw me step out of the shuttle, he rushed forward, his hand extended, his movements almost frantic with relief. "Captain Gordon," he said, his voice shaking. "On behalf of everyone here, thank you. You gave us our lives back. You gave us hope when we had none left." I shook his hand, feeling the tremor in his grip, the physical manifestation of weeks of fear and sleeplessness finally releasing. "You would have held out. You're stronger than you think. We just accelerated the timeline." "Maybe," Chen said, but I could hear the doubt in his voice, the knowledge that they had been days, hours perhaps, from complete collapse. "But we wouldn't have lasted another week. The shields were failing. We were running out of supplies. People were starting to talk about surrender, about whether living as slaves was better than dying free." He looked past me then, his expression shifting from gratitude to surprise as Sky emerged from the shuttle. She stood at the top of the ramp for a moment, taking in the crowd, the buildings, the sky above us, her young face alight with wonder and curiosity. "And who is this?" Chen asked, his voice softening automatically the way adults' voices always did around children. "This is Sky," I said, watching as she descended the ramp with careful steps, as though testing the solidity of the ground beneath her feet. "She's part of my crew, part of our mission." Chen smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from him, and crouched down to Sky's eye level, his exhausted face transforming into something gentler, kinder. "Hello, Sky. Welcome to our little colony. Thank you for helping save us." Sky tilted her head, studying him with those ancient eyes that saw too much, that understood things children shouldn't understand. "Why do you look so tired?" Chen blinked, surprised by the directness, the lack of social filter that most children learned but Sky had never acquired. Then he laughed, a real laugh, the first genuine sound of joy I'd heard from him, bubbling up from somewhere deep inside where he'd locked away happiness during the siege. "Because we've been very scared for a very long time, but we're not scared anymore, thanks to you and your captain." Sky considered this, her young face serious. "Good. Fear is useful sometimes. It keeps you alert, makes you careful. But too much of it makes people stop thinking clearly, makes them make bad choices out of desperation.
Gordon taught me that. Gordon sounds like a wise teacher, Chen said, giving me an approving look. He is, Sky said with absolute confidence, and something in my chest tightened at the trust in her voice. He knows a lot of things. He's very old. Chen laughed again, and I felt my face flush slightly. I'm not that old, I protested. Sky looked at me with those knowing eyes. You're older than everyone here combined. Probably older than this whole colony. That makes you very old. She wasn't wrong, technically. I had been alive for centuries. But hearing it stated so bluntly by a being who was infinitely older than me had a certain ironic humor to it. Chen gestured to the crowd, to the plaza lit by soft lanterns now that the sun had fully set. Please, you must let us show you our hospitality. We don't have much. Resources are still tight after weeks under siege, but what we have, we share gladly. Come, rest, eat. You've more than earned it. I looked at Sky, who was nodding eagerly, already drawn to the energy of the crowd, to the warmth of human connection. We'd be honored, I said.
The colony held a celebration that night that stretched into the early morning hours. It wasn't elaborate. Resources were still tight, supplies low. The siege had taken its toll on everything from food stores to medical supplies, but it was genuine, heartfelt, offered with the kind of generosity that only comes from people who know what it means to have nothing and are grateful for everything. Long tables appeared in the plaza as if by magic, carried out from storage buildings and family homes. Simple food materialized. Bread baked fresh, vegetables from the local farms, protein grown in vats but seasoned with care, water purified and flavored with local fruits, music played on instruments that had been handed down through generations, melodies that mixed earth traditions with colonial innovations, creating something uniquely their own. Children ran between the tables, laughing with a freedom they hadn't been allowed in weeks, finally permitted to be loud and wild and joyful again without fear that noise would attract attention or danger. Parents watched them with tears in their eyes, grateful beyond words that their children would have a chance to grow up, to have futures, instead of becoming statistics in some forgotten colonial disaster. Sky was enchanted by all of it. She sat with a group of children near one of the tables, and I watched from a distance as she asked them questions with endless curiosity, that ancient mind encountering childhood play for the first time in eons. Why do you run like that? What's that game called? Can I try? What are the rules? Why is it fun? The children, initially shy around this strange girl who looked like one of them but spoke like she'd never seen a child's game before, quickly warmed to her enthusiasm. Soon she was running with them, her laughter ringing across the plaza as they taught her to play tag, to skip rope, to sing songs she'd never heard, games that had been played on Earth and carried to the stars. I watched her throw her head back and laugh at something one of the children said, completely unself-conscious, completely present in the moment, and felt something warm spread through my chest. This was what the architects had meant. This was what she needed to learn, not just facts about the universe, but how to be part of it, how to connect, how to find joy in simple things.
I sat with Chen and a few other colony leaders at one of the tables. Sato, the head of agriculture, a weathered woman with strong hands and kind eyes. Martinez, the chief engineer, young but competent, his fingers stained with grease from constant repairs. Williams, the head teacher, older than the others, with the patient expression of someone who'd spent decades working with children. "She's remarkable," Chen said, following my gaze to where Sky was spinning in circles with the other children, her hair flying around her like a silver cape. "Your daughter?" "Not exactly," I said, choosing my words carefully. "But I'm responsible for her. I'm supposed to teach her about the universe, help her understand what she's been missing. She's learning fast, Sato observed, smiling as Sky successfully caught another child in a game of tag, her triumph celebrated with squeals of delight from the other players. Look at her. She's already figured out how to make friends. That's a skill that matters more than most people realize. That's one lesson I never had to teach her, I said, watching Sky with something approaching parental pride, despite having known her for less than 2 weeks. She's better at connecting than I ever was, than I probably ever will be. You connected with us, Chen said quietly, his voice carrying weight and meaning. You could have destroyed those raiders, could have come in with weapons blazing, shown them your power, made an example of them. Many would have. Many would have said they deserved it for terrorizing innocents. But you didn't, Martinez added, leaning forward. You scared them away. Gave them a chance to leave with their lives. That took wisdom. That took restraint that most people don't have. It took luck, I said honestly, because I didn't want them to put me on a pedestal I didn't deserve. And the right equipment. If they'd called my bluff, if they'd decided to fight anyway, people might have died. I made a choice, but it could have gone badly. But it didn't, William said, her teacher's voice gentle but firm. You made the right choice in the moment, and that's all any of us can do. Judge the situation, make the best decision we can with the information we have, and accept the consequences. Chen leaned back, his expression thoughtful. Years of exhaustion starting to ease from his features now that the immediate crisis had passed. You know what you reminded me of today? The old stories, the ones my grandmother used to tell when I was young, about heroes who traveled the stars protecting the weak, knights errant in spaceships, guardians who appeared when hope was lost. He smiled, but there was sadness in it too. I always thought they were just myths, fairy tales to help children sleep, to make them believe the universe was kinder than it really is. But you're here. You're real. And you came when we needed you most. Maybe they were real once, I said quietly, thinking of the architects, of all the civilizations that had risen and fallen before humanity learned to reach for the stars. The heroes in those stories, maybe they existed, protected people for a while, and then left when their time was done, or died, or just got tired of carrying the weight. But you're here now, Sato said firmly. That's what matters. You answered the call. You could have ignored it. Could have decided it wasn't your problem. Could have figured that one colony out of millions wasn't worth the risk, but you came anyway. I looked around at the celebration, at people who had been terrified yesterday and were dancing tonight, at children who had hidden in shelters and were now playing under the stars, at a community that had been on the brink of collapse and was now planning for tomorrow, for next week, for next year. We're just one ship, I said, voicing the doubt that had been nagging at me since the architects had given me this mission. There are thousands of places like this. Millions, probably. We can't help them all. We can't be everywhere. How do we choose? How do we live with the knowledge that while we're here, somewhere else, people are dying that we might have saved? Chen was quiet for a moment, considering. Then he said, You can't save everyone. No one can. But you saved us, and that's everything to us. Our children will grow up. Our community will rebuild. Our stories will continue because you were here, because you chose us. He reached across the table and gripped my hand. Don't diminish that by comparing it to what you couldn't do elsewhere. Honor it by being present here, now, in this moment. Let us thank you properly. Let us show you what you fought for. I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. Unexpected, unbidden, but genuine. When had I last cried? When had I last let myself feel the full weight of connection, of meaning, of mattering to people in a way that transcended mere survival? Thank you, I said, my voice thick, for reminding me why we're doing this. Sky appeared then, slightly out of breath from playing, her hair messed and her face flushed with joy. She climbed onto the bench next to me, leaning against my arm with the unconscious affection of a child, and I realized with a start that this ancient being had decided I was safe, was trustworthy, was someone worth being close to.
"Gordon, did you see?" she asked, her words tumbling out in an excited rush. "They taught me so many games and songs, and they told me about their families and their farms and what they want to be when they grow up, and—" She paused, looking up at me with those ancient eyes that had seen galaxies born, and asked the question that cut to the heart of everything. Is this what everywhere is like? Is this what people are like when they're not scared? "Some places," I said carefully. "The good ones. The ones worth protecting." "I like it," she said simply, settling more comfortably against my side. "I like seeing people be happy, seeing them be safe, seeing them be together. Is this what we're going to do? Go to places where people aren't safe and help make them safe again?" "Yes," I said, "as often as we can, as many as we can reach." "Good," she said, her eyes already drifting closed, the excitement and new experiences finally catching up to her despite her vast age. "That's a good job. Being guardians, making people safe so they can be happy. I think I understand now why the architects chose you, why they wanted you to teach me." "Why?" I asked softly. "Because you care," she murmured, sleep pulling her under. "You've lived so long, seen so much, lost so many people, but you still care. You still think it matters. That's the most important thing, caring when it would be easier not to." She fell asleep against my arm, and I sat there with her, feeling the weight of her small form, feeling the trust she had placed in me, feeling the responsibility that came with that trust. Chen smiled across the table. "You have your hands full with that one, Captain." "I know," I said, looking down at Sky's peaceful face. "But I think that's exactly the point. She keeps me honest, keeps me present, keeps me from getting lost in my own head." "Every guardian needs someone to guard them too," William said wisely. "Someone to remind them why they fight, someone to come home to." We sat there for hours, talking and laughing and sharing stories, theirs of the siege and how they'd survived, mine of travels through the stars and the strange things I had encountered. The celebration continued around us, life asserting itself in the face of recent terror, joy pushing back against fear. And Sky slept through it all, safe and warm, dreaming whatever dreams ancient beings dream when they finally find a place to rest.
We stayed at the colony for 3 days, ensuring the raiders didn't return, that our intervention hadn't just brought temporary respite, but actual safety. I spent the time helping them repair their shield generators, upgrading their defense systems with knowledge I'd accumulated over centuries, not enough to make them a military target, but enough that opportunistic pirates would think twice before trying again. April coordinated with their engineers, her vast knowledge of ancient technology helping them understand systems they inherited but never fully comprehended. And Sky spent every waking moment with the children, soaking up their energy, their games, their unfiltered joy. I watched her learn things that couldn't be taught in lectures: how to share, how to comfort someone who was sad, how to laugh at yourself when you made a mistake, how to be part of a community rather than apart from it. On the morning of the 4th day, we prepared to leave. The children gathered around Sky in the plaza, some of them crying openly now, not afraid to show their emotions. She hugged each one, her small arms tight around their shoulders, promising she'd remember them, promising she'd come back if she could. "Will you?" one little boy asked, his voice thick with tears. He was trying to be brave about it. Come back, I mean, or will you just disappear, like a dream? Sky looked at me, the question in her eyes. Can we promise that? Should we? I said, if we can, not wanting to make promises I couldn't keep, but also not wanting to crush hope. But we have to go help other people now, people who need us like you needed us, people who are scared and waiting for someone to come. The boy nodded, wiping his eyes, trying to be grown up about it. Okay, but you'll remember us, right? Even if you can't come back? Always, Sky said fiercely, and I could hear the weight of her ancient existence in that single word. I'll remember all of you, forever and ever. I'll remember how you taught me to play, how you shared your food, how you made me feel welcome. I'll carry that with me always. Chen walked us to the shuttle, his hand resting on my shoulder, the gesture familiar now after days of working together. You've given us more than our lives. You've given us hope, the knowledge that someone out there cares what happens to places like this, to people like us. Someone always should, I said, meaning it with every fiber of my being. That's what we're trying to prove, that no place is too small, no one is too unimportant, that every life matters, every community matters, every voice deserves to be heard and protected. Safe travels, Chen said, and there were tears in his eyes now too. And thank you for everything. We boarded the shuttle, and as we lifted off, Sky pressed her face to the viewport one last time, waving until the colony was just a speck below us, until the people were invisible dots, until all that remained was the memory of connection, of mattering, of being part of something larger than ourselves. When we docked with the Wanderer's Dream and returned to the bridge, she was quiet for a long time. Unusually quiet, her exuberance dimmed by something I couldn't quite identify. Sky, I asked gently, settling into the captain's seat. Are you all right? I'm sad, she said softly, honestly, without trying to hide or minimize the feeling. I liked them. I didn't want to leave. They felt like friends, like family maybe. I don't remember having friends before, or family. It felt good. And now it's gone. I know, I said. And I did. Gods, I knew that feeling better than almost anything else in my long existence. That's the hardest part of this life. You meet people, you care about them, you let them matter to you, and then you have to move on. You have to say goodbye, and it never stops hurting, never gets easier, no matter how many times you do it. Then why do it? She asked, turning to look at me with those ancient eyes now glistening with unshed tears. Why not just stay distant, stay separate, never let anyone matter? I thought about that, really thought about it, because it was the question I'd been asking myself for centuries, the question that had nearly broken me more times than I could count. Because the alternative is worse, I said finally. Not caring, not connecting, not letting yourself matter to people or letting them matter to you. That's not living. That's just existing. Moving through space without touching anything, without leaving marks, without being changed by what you encounter. And we're supposed to do more than exist. I stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the planet below, at the tiny colony holding 100,000 lives, each one precious, each one irreplaceable. The pain of leaving is proof that the connection mattered, that we were present, that we made a difference. If we didn't feel sad about leaving, it would mean we didn't care. And if we don't care, we're not guardians. We're just soldiers, following orders without understanding why. Sky climbed into her seat, pulling her knees to her chest, processing this new emotion, learning what it meant to grieve while still being grateful. The architect said, "You'd teach me about everything and nothing." I think I'm starting to understand. Everything is all those people, all those connections, all those moments of caring. And nothing is what you'd have if you never made any.
That's actually perfect, I said, surprised again by her insight, by how quickly she grasped concepts that had taken me centuries to understand. You're a very good student. I have a good teacher, she said, and smiled despite the sadness in her eyes. April pulled up the star map, showing the remaining markers, so many of them, scattered across galaxies we had yet to explore, places that needed help, people waiting for someone to care. Ready for the next one? Sky straightened, her sadness transforming into determination, into purpose. Yes, let's go help them. All of them we can reach. We can't help all of them, April reminded her gently. There are too many. The universe is vast, and we're just one ship. Then we help as many as we can, Sky said firmly. And in that moment, she sounded less like a child and more like the ancient being she truly was. And we do it as well as we can. And we remember each one. That's what guardians do, right? I looked at this impossible child who was teaching me as much as I was teaching her, and felt something settle in my chest. Not relief exactly, but acceptance, purpose, understanding. That's exactly what guardians do. Wanderer's dream, set course for the next marker. Let's see who needs us. The ship responded immediately, systems humming with power and purpose, the stars beginning to stretch as we prepared to jump into that impossible space between spaces. Engaging faster than light travel, the ship announced. Next destination, the Meridian Colonies, Andromeda Periphery. Journey time, 19 days. 19 days. Another world, another story, another chance to matter. Sky settled into her seat, already peppering April with questions about what they might find, what people might be like there, what adventures were waiting. Her sadness wasn't gone. I could still see it in her eyes, but it was tempered now with anticipation, with purpose, with the understanding that each goodbye made room for a new hello. And I sat in the captain's seat, feeling the weight of my new existence, not as a burden, but as an anchor, something to hold on to in the infinite expanse of forever, something that gave shape to immortality, that transformed curse into calling. I was a guardian now, a teacher, a protector, a keeper of stories and a maker of meaning. And for the first time in all my long years, I knew exactly where I belonged. The stars stretched, space folded, and the wanderer's dream carried us forward into the infinite dark, toward the next light that needed protecting, toward the next voice that needed hearing, toward the next life that mattered. Always forward, always seeking, always caring, because that's what guardians do. The hum of the wanderer's dream, steady and sure. Sky's laughter echoing through the corridors, already recovering, already reaching forward. April's voice, calm and constant, an anchor in the storm. And the infinite patience of the stars waiting for us to find them, to protect them, to honor them with our presence. The quiet promise of tomorrow, of purpose, of meaning found in service. Next time on Chronicles of the Timeless Adventurer, the Meridian Colonies. The adventure continues. New worlds await. New challenges beckon. New lessons about what it means to protect, to teach, to guard the light against the infinite dark. Gordon, April, and Sky will return.